is because the last time a case like this was in Toronto, it was with the infamous Toronto 18, where they were set up by a CSIS informant.
The NDP is all in favor of today's arrests, but not in favor of the new bill, which would allow preventive arrests.
These officials said the two men wanted to make a big statement with a significant economic impact.
Canadian police have detained two suspects and have linked them to an extremist al-Qaeda faction based in Iran.
Welcome back. This is Radio Free Canada. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Monica Salmark.
We are so styling today because we are happy, we are not afraid. That is exactly what it comes down to. Radio Free Canada supporting you in confidence as we go through security theater.
Canadian style.
Canadian style.
Can you smell the bacon frying?
I can. Let's listen to this.
Iran's government has rejected any link to an alleged al-Qaeda plot to derail a passenger train in North America. Canadian authorities say there are no signs that the Iranian state, with which it severed diplomatic relations last year, was behind the attempted attack. Nonetheless, Iran's foreign minister has dismissed the al-Qaeda allegations as ridiculous. There is no al-Qaeda in Iran, he said. I hope that the Canadian officials will think on and treat people intelligently. Canadian police have detained two suspects and have linked them to an extremist al-Qaeda faction based in Iran. However, as a Shiite Muslim theocracy, Iran has little in common with the Sunni-based al-Qaeda. US officials say the attack would have targeted a rail line between New York and Toronto.
Yes, welcome to the Security Theater edition of Radio Free Canada. I can't believe it. Iran.
Well, of course, now since that's come out, the RCMP has stepped up and say, oh, there are no links to Iran.
Is that what they said?
Yeah.
Did they come up and say that afterwards?
Yeah.
That's lame.
Well, Iran came out and said, this is ridiculous. What are you talking about?
It sounds like bullying.
Yeah. Okay. In a big national or international way.
Yeah.
You know, they
totally.
just traipse out the guys wearing, different clothes because, of course, we can't trust them.
Easy target.
Yeah.
Well, it's all part of this idea of trying to get a war started with Iran because, don't you know, they may have the ability to perhaps someday manufacture an atomic bomb.
Yeah, even though that they've issued a statement saying they're not going to do it. Let's get into it. We got another clip. Let's catch up. Fox News has got this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's run it. You're listening to Radio Free Canada. Thank you for joining us.
Al-Qaeda to blow up a passenger train traveling from New York to the greater Toronto area. The alleged terrorists are Shahib Essaghir, age 30, and Raid Jasser, age 35, of Montreal and Toronto, respectively. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police said they worked with Canadian intelligence and provincial police and with U.S. national security and law enforcement officers to disrupt this alleged plot in an 8-month investigation codenamed Project Smooth. They said the plot was detected early on and neither American nor Canadian citizens faced any imminent threat as a result. U.S. officials told Fox News the defendants' objective was to blow up a bridge in the Toronto area while a Via commuter train originating from New York was traveling over it. These officials said the two men wanted to make a big statement with a significant economic impact. The mounted police told reporters today that Mr. Essaghir and Jasser, quote, took steps to advance the plot, including allegedly conducting their own surveillance of trains in the greater Toronto area.
The individuals were receiving support from al-Qaeda elements located in Iran.
Thank you.
Now, I can tell you that there is no information to indicate that these attacks were state-sponsored.
The arrest took place in Montreal and Toronto this afternoon. Search warrants were still being executed late today. Beyond the fact that neither man is a Canadian citizen, the defendants' nationalities were not disclosed. However, a WordPress account, apparently established by Essaghir and subsequently taken offline, listed him as a Tunisian-born engineer trained in industrial biology and working for a bio-nanotechnology lab in Canada. The defendants are scheduled to appear at bail hearings in Toronto tomorrow. Brett.
James, thank you. We'll follow this story now to Boston. A moment of silence observed today exactly.
So you heard right on there, okay, statement straight out, okay, what the RCMP had to say.
Yes, al-Qaeda groups in Iran
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Al-Qaeda is operating in Canada.
Now remember, I'm talking to the right wingers on the street, especially
right.
the anti-abortion guys. And so, if you ever want to talk to a right winger, go down to the anti-abortion and ask them about world politics. And they believe that there's terrorism around every corner.
Well, even though you're more likely to die from a bee sting than in a terrorist attack.
You're 8 times more likely to be killed by an RCMP officer than to be killed by a terrorist.
Hey guys, we have a bee in the studio.
Do we?
Yeah.
We have our own buzzing. Oh wait, that's a wasp.
It's a terrorist attack.
Call
Guys.
out CSIS.
Apparently, we have. I always watch the conspiracy guys, right?
Yeah.
They would say, "Hey, you got a robot and nanotechnology."
Well,
that would be kind of cool.
It's kind of creepy, yeah.
Okay, so while we put our tinfoil hats on and I deal with the wasp problem in the studio right now, what do you got for me, brother?
Well, we do have the predictable reaction from the Harper government in regard to the Boston bombing and this other interestingly timed event.
Okay, so what do you think it's going to be?
My bet is it's going to be towards protecting Canada.
Okay.
Without anybody saying anything. We'll just arrest you right now.
Okay, check it out. Check our facts.
Members of Parliament were already talking about terrorism today when news of the arrest broke. Terry Milewski has more on that and the reaction in Ottawa to the alleged plot. Terry.
Well, Peter, today's arrests come as Ottawa's debating new legislation on terrorism, including a bid to bring back some post-9/11 provisions which had lapsed. So the timing of these arrests didn't hurt the government's plans.
Today's arrests demonstrate that terrorism continues to be a real threat to Canada.
The government seized on the news to highlight the dangers, even as runners assembled outside and headed for the U.S. Embassy to pay tribute to the victims of the Boston bombings 1 week ago, all of which put the NDP in a tight spot. The NDP is all in favor of today's arrests, but not in favor of the new bill, which would allow preventive arrests.
We're opposed to that bill. We think that it doesn't respect the Charter of Rights. This idea of being able to arrest people without charging them it goes against not only the grain of our history and traditions, but against the Charter. It's pretty obvious.
It's time right now for parliamentarians to act, to give law enforcement the tools that they need.
After the Boston bombing and the news that young Canadians had joined an Al-Qaeda-linked attack in Algeria, the government suddenly rediscovered its bill.
Preventing, countering, and prosecuting terrorism is a priority for our government.
Still, the government has let the bill go nowhere for 4 months since it passed the Senate. It would make it a crime for a Canadian to attend a terrorist training camp overseas, and it would restore post-9/11 liberal provisions like preventive arrests and investigative hearings.
Why do we support it? Well, because we were the ones that originally brought it in, and we live in a dangerous world.
But the Liberals have flip-flopped on these provisions. They brought them in, then they voted to let them die once the Tories took over, and now they're supporting them again. And the NDP has never supported them. So don't expect the government to stop painting the opposition as soft on terror. Peter.
All right, Terry, thank you. Terry Milewski
Well,
in
the
Ottawa.
timing certainly is interesting on that.
Timing.
It's everything.
It is everything.
It's such a crock because that's what everybody said right away. Immediately, the major news is going, are you serious?
But it's kind of funny. How can Vic Taves, who looks so much like the Lorax, actually come out and say terrorism continues to be a threat in Canada?
Yeah, like
really?
What? Now, I'm starting to do some investigation into this. We recorded extensively the Muslim response yesterday. Okay, because Muslim national people said, hey, look, Muslim isn't about blowing people up. These are fanatics. We have a tape on there where they talk about the fact that you can't walk into a mosque and say we're going to blow stuff up.
And apparently it was a Muslim community that tipped off CSIS about this plot in the first place.
And I'm going to say the one thing that nobody's saying in major news. It was his dad who tipped off CSIS. Are we just talking about a domestic dispute that got blown out of proportion?
Wow.
Because the guy, the dad's upset that the son doesn't go out and get a traditional job.
Could be.
Okay? Now, we're going to follow this down, but remember, it was a dad choked at his vagrant son who chose a rebellious lifestyle, and we've been sucked into a domestic dispute. But, they're going to paint it as...
Well, it's a plot, it must be linked to Al-Qaeda. It's part of that international terrorist network that the CIA so cleverly set up back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. But
how come I'm not seeing of any other terror or terrorism going on in Canada other than what's happening to the I Don't Know More movement?
Yeah, what's happening to the natives, what's happening to protesters, like police brutality protesters in Montreal, when they got 200 arrests down there. Where's the follow-up on the news about the government-sponsored terrorism by the police?
Well, we can't talk about that because, they're the authorities.
But they are control, and they are politically motivated.
Yes, so let's talk about politics. Yes. Now that I'm good.
Hi there, everyone. Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. Today is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2013. We're currently out front of Old City Hall today, where the suspect in the recent foiled Canadian terror plot is set to make an appearance at court. There was a press conference with the lawyer who's representing him. At first, his father emerged from the court, and there was a rather large press scrum following him. They asked him, "Do you think your son is innocent?" To which he basically replied, "That's up for the police to decide." And eventually the lawyer did make his way out, and I managed to get in a couple of questions, and here's what I had to ask him.
He was monitored for the last year. Was there any contact during that time, or were there any CSIS informants who infiltrated the group?
Once again, I have no comment on the evidence.
Can you tell us why the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are involved?
I can't comment on that, and frankly, I don't know.
So he could not comment on whether or not during the monitoring process the suspects was contacted or not, or whether or not they were set up by a CSIS informant. He also cannot comment on why the FBI is involved in this case. And the reason why these questions are important are because of recent information that has come out in the last week in regards to the FBI's involvement with the suspects in regards to the Boston Marathon bombing. The reason why I was curious about a CSIS informant as well is because the last time a case like this was in Toronto, it was with the infamous Toronto 18, where they were set up by a CSIS informant. So I wanted to find out if this is a similar situation this time around. On the heels of these accusations, the Conservative government have been trying to push through this new anti-terror legislation, which would allow for pre-emptive arrests to try to stop terrorist attacks. This just jumping up on the opportunity to push through these types of bills. The public only became aware of this case just yesterday, so this is an ongoing developing case. So we're going to continue to follow this one as more developments come out. So stay tuned to pressfortruth.ca and pressfortruth.tv.
And check your facts. Check out Dan Dix. Check out Press for Truth.
Oh, yeah. I suggest everybody subscribe to his channel, which is Weaving Spider on YouTube.
Okay.
And he's pretty informed on what's going on, especially back east there.
Yeah. So how do you take that?
Well, I definitely take that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the background, and I love that he explained the importance of the questions coming out.
Yeah.
Why is the FBI involved?
Yeah. What were they doing? Is it the same thing as Boston, where they're cultivating these guys, and then they turn around and say, "Oh, there's a terrorist."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They've done this, 6 times?
I think it's more than that. I don't know. I've kind of lost count how many times they've had these sting operations.
Yeah, these supposed, oh, yes, we're going to.
And it's really funny when the talking heads get on these news programs and cite these, like the underwear bomber and the shoe bomber and the Christmas Day bomber. And these were all set up by the FBI.
I know. It's like they're, oh, by the way, we don't have the internet.
Yeah.
It is a terror campaign.
We are not going to put up with it. We are going to fight against this in this ridiculous preemptive arrest that they have going on and the continuous focus on what is not the solution.
Well, it's just crazy having a war on a noun.
War on nouns. Brought to you by the Conservative government. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Monica Solmark.
Sorry, I was going clockwise.
I know. That's okay. We changed things. We're here for you. Remember, activism's winning. But we're going to be right back with what? Something else, right?
More terror. Terror. It's Terror Tuesday.
Okay, we'll be back.